Hey guys, these are my predictions for UFC 311. It's Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. Let me bring up the card here. This is a good card. Some of the prelims, they got a lot of prospects on this card, and the last three or four fights are just awesome fights. Awesome fight. All right, so we got UFC 311 here. All right, sorry about that. All right, UFC 311. I'm just going to start from the bottom, go right up. And let's see. Wow, first fight of the night, we got Clayton Carpenter, who's a undefeated prospect, against Tagir Ulanbekov. Ulanbekov's been in the UFC for a little bit. He's got a 4-1 record in the UFC. That's pretty good. Clayton Carpenter, I think I remember him from the MMA lab. That's a good gym. Yeah, the Contender Series a couple years ago, he got signed. Since then, he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but he won both of them. Not good competition. Lucas Rocha, I guess he's not that bad. I don't even know who this Ronderos guy is. So, I mean, not facing a lot of good opponents, but he is undefeated. I know he's a kind of a scrappy guy. He should have a lot of skills being at MMA Lab. I think that's the lab. That's the gym that like Gastelum and all them train out of. That's a really good gym. Probably should have a pretty good, decent ground game as well. But the thing is with Tagir, like he's just got the UFC experience, and I like taking a shot on these undefeated prospects sometimes, but usually it's against other young fighters that haven't really done much. This guy, like, I mean, I could tell you right now, like Tagir has already beat Cody Durden. Like Cody Durden is like he's the toughest test as they come. Like, you know, when you're kind of starting out early in your UFC career, Cody Durden's a really good win. Nate Manassas, not really good win. Tim Elliott, I want to say Tagir had some stamina issues in that fight, I believe, and he gassed out against Tim Elliott. Maybe Tim Elliott was able to wrestle him a little bit more, but yeah. And then Alan Nascimento split decision, but Bruno Silva's a good win. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going with this Tagir. Like I said, the UFC experience. If Carpenter comes out looking good in this fight, I'll keep an eye on the guy. But until then, I just see him as an unproven prospect. And like I got smoked on that Bashi guy last week. He was just facing like a veteran guy, and he just wasn't ready. That's what I think is going to happen to this Clayton Carpenter guy. I think he's going to try and get his takedowns where he can. Being at MMA Lab, that's got to be his plan, is to get takedowns. I just don't think it's going to work against Ulanbekov. I think Ulanbekov's a little better on the feet, and he's just going to take 2 or 3 rounds. With him having a cardio issue, it's probably going to be the 3rd round that he loses, but it's going to be one of those typical fights I see where Tagir just kind of dominates the first 2 rounds. Carpenter's not able to get a takedown. Then maybe he gets a takedown in the 3rd round, dominates the 3rd round, but doesn't get a finish and just loses 2-1. That's how I see this fight going. I definitely see it going to a decision, though, unless Clayton Carpenter can get a submission early or something like that. I don't know. This next fight, we got Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopai. I liked Turcios. I believe he was on the Tough Series a couple of years ago. See where he trains. Yeah, he's a Team Alpha Fail guy. That's why. That's why I remember him. Yeah, But I like Team Alpha Male. I'm sorry. I just some people say they got that joke Team Alpha fail because a lot of their fighters have they just haven't been doing good recently in the UFC. But yeah, Turkios. I mean, he lost his last fight to Raul Rojas. That's just a terrible matchup for him. I think he was a huge dog in that fight, anyways. Because I remember taking Rojas, Navidad. Like that. That's not that good of a win. That's a hobby. I think I remember that fight, and I remember picking Turkios, and I think I thought he won that fight maybe, but yeah, I mean, not the best resume out there. He's kind of an all stand up guy, which is weird being from Team Alpha Male, but he is an all stand up guy, and the problem is like this Bernardo Sopaja guy, um, he's legit. This All Stars Training Center here. Let me see who else trains out of this gym. Um, Yeah, this is the Gustafson, and who the hell else is from this gym? Yeah, yeah, Felipe Lima. This guy is an absolute stud in the UFC. He's going to be real good. I see him being a future champion someday. Guy above him's not that bad either. Hazmat Chimaev, Ilir Latifi. Phew, he was a tank back in the day. Oh my God, look at these names. Yeah, but it's a good gym. It's a good stand. It should be a good stand up gym. This guy's stand up's probably really good. And the thing is, I think what I remember about this guy, like this guy's got some crack in him. He's got some power. And this fight right here, he took on short notice and ended up getting a flying knee knockout. But he took that on short notice, and that was his UFC debut. I think they're kind of giving him a somewhat easy fight, and but this is going to be an all stand up fight. It should be, and I just see Turkios either getting dominated for 3 straight rounds or getting knocked out. But if I had my choice, I would say this Sopayish guy um, gets the knockout and knocks Ricky Turkios out in. I'm gonna. It's first or second round, but I'm gonna say second round. Second round KO. Next fight we got coming up here, we got Carl Rosa versus Aline Perez. Man, I remember Aline Perez from the Contender Series. Let's see, Carl Rosa. Man, I get so many of these women's MMA fighters just mixed up in my mind. Yeah, I mean, all these fighters that she's fighting, like Kinzaid, Aldana, Dormo, like they're all even this Rosa chick, like they're all the same type of fighter. She beat Lena Landsberg, like that. That's tough to do. Miss Kia, Sarah McMahon, Betch Correa, Jocelyn. Let me see. Jocelyn Edwards, I know, is a stand-up fighter. Betch Correa doesn't know, can't spell wrestling. Lena Landsberg definitely can't wrestle. Um, and I'm just saying that because that's the one thing that I know Perez does. So, uh, I mean, I'm not too impressed with Rosa's resume. I know a lot of these fights in here could probably go either way. Like, yeah, got split decision here, but women's MMA is a very tough thing to judge. There's not a lot of submissions that happen there. But this Perez chick, I know she likes to get the fight to the ground. Yeah, she does a little twerk thing, but yeah, I like her. Yeah, Lucy Poldova, Ashley Evans Smith, Jocelyn Edwards. These are halfway decent wins, and the thing is, in women's MMA, to be to ring up like 5 wins in a row, 4 or 5 wins in a row, it's a tough thing to do because they're so evenly matched. Stephanie Egger's her only loss. It's okay. Stephanie Egger's not the best, but yeah, that was her UFC debut, and I mean, since then she's 4-0 in the UFC. After that, she was pretty active last year. She had 2 fights. I'm not mad at that. I I think I like Alan Perez in this fight. I believe Perez is. Oh wow, Perez is a big dog here. Not plus 210. Definitely worth it. Definitely worth a flyer on Perez here because she's got wrestling in her back pocket now. I think she's a little bit undersized for that weight class, but she's very strong and she can get the fight to the ground. Rosa's probably a better stand up, and maybe she has better jujitsu. Being from Brazil, I'm just assuming she's got it. But Aileen Perez can get this fight to the ground, and that's just what she does. That's her world. It's her path to victory. If it doesn't work out, she might get knocked out on the feet because her hands are not that good. But I like Ellen Perez here. I'm going to pick her with the upset at plus 210. I missed a fight in here. This Nakamura guy, who's a huge favorite, but he's a really good prospect from Japan. This Gurov guy, yeah, he's from Tajikistan, combat sambo guy. Tajikistan is kind of a hotbed. I think man, they kind of threw him to the wolves there against. I mean, John Castaneda ain't that great, but I mean, Sadnam Regomedov's a really good fighter. Kohyu Kang he beat. That's not bad. But yeah, this Reina Nakamura guy is going to be really good. And yeah, he's a stud wrestler out of Japan. And all those guys in Japan can strike as well. So I mean, this Nakamura guy is going to run through him. This would be a good fight to put on a parlay. I don't know how much I would bet this guy just single here at minus 500, but I like it. Yeah, just chuck him on a parlay. These next fighters I don't know much about. Zach Reese plus 175 against Azmat Bekov. Bekov is minus 230. American Top Team. It's a really good gym. Some of these fighters, if I don't know them, I will just side with the one who's in the better gym. Let's see, is LFA champion. It looks like this Dylan Bucka guy, I believe, made it to the UFC, and I think he had himself a little cardio issue, and he gassed out in all of his fights. Yeah, he's that ripped up white dude. I remember, but Bucka's a halfway decent fighter, and he beat him in LFA. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't recognize a lot of those names on there, but yeah, I mean, nothing crazy for him to be a big favorite against a guy like Reese, who, yeah, Reese, he's a Texas guy, so he's probably just a tough dude. Um, he beat Julio or yeah, Julian Marquez, like that would have been a great win like 5-6 years ago. Lost to Cody Brundridge. I'm not too high on Brundridge, but yeah, Brundridge is slamming punches. That's the one thing he could do. He's a very strong dude. He can take people down, and he has been in a lot of tough fights. So that 9-5 record, he's a little better than that. But yeah, that's his only loss is to Cody Brundridge. Cody Brundridge is pretty good. Marquez win doesn't mean much. Jose Medina stinks. So yeah, there's just not much to say about Zach Reese. I'm just going to side with the better gym here and go with Azmat Bekov. And I mean, like I said, I don't know much about either one of these guys. I'm just siding with the better gym, and he's also the favorites. Oh, geez. This guy's 6'4". Zach Reese is 6'4". See if he's got a crazy size advantage or something. I mean, he's got 5 inches in height on the guy. Could be something to look forward to. It just size just it doesn't mean too much, but there are some fighters out there with size advantages that I hate to bet against, like guys like Sean Woodson, who's just 5-6 inches taller than his opponents in every single fight. And sometimes guys just can't figure it out. Even if they're more skilled, they just can't figure out how to get inside. I don't think that'll be the problem here with Bekov, just because he's at the American Top Team. I think they'll have a game plan ready, and yeah, this guy will be an all right bet. I mean, I'm not going to throw too much on him at those odds just because they don't know much about him. But minus 230, let's just go with Bekov there. This next fight is a banger. I think this is going to be a really good fight, even though Grant Dawson tends to fall in love with his wrestling a lot, and he is a really good wrestler. He's a very strong guy. Man, he's only 30 years old. It feels like I've been watching him for forever. But, Nebraska guy, training American Top Team down there in Florida. So yeah, really good gym. Yeah, like, oh man, I remember betting my boy Ricky Glenn against him, and Ricky Glenn was a huge underdog, and he took a draw on that. But that's a bad draw. Ricky Glenn's not a very good fighter. Uh, but man, like going down his career, Julian Erosa's a decent win. It might not have been that good of a win back then, but it's a good win now. Mike Trezano was good back then. Derek Minner was not good. Ned Mari's not bad. Leonardo Santos, but these are all names like Jared Gordon, Marco Madsen. He beat. I mean, Marco Madsen was he's one of the best wrestlers to ever be in the UFC. Damar Ismagulov, that's a really good win. Bobby Green, yeah, some people lose to him. Joe Selecki's a decent win. But and Rafa Garcia's a halfway. Just he's fighting names. He's fighting names. He's got a lot of experience. Diego Ferreira is a powerhouse, though. He's that guy. Like, if you like Diego Ferreira, you just don't like Grant Dawson, or you want to watch the fight and root for something exciting to happen, maybe just bet Ferreira by stoppage, because he can submit people, he can take you down. It's just, I think Grant Dawson will eventually take this guy down. But when this fight's on the feet, it's going to be impressive. He's fighting out of Fortis MMA. That's a great gym, too. He beat Michael Johnson a couple of fights ago. I remember that. I bet Michael Johnson against him. Rebecca's not that good. Mateus Gamrot, that's a tough fight. Gregor Gillespie back then, that's a tough fight. Benil Dariush, that's a tough fight. You can't take anything away from any three of these losses here. And before that, he beats Pettis. That was probably a washed-up Pettis, but it's still Pettis. Taisumovs was a good fighter. Kabilov. Kyle Nelson, yeah. Jared Gordon he beat as well. He beat Aubin Mercier back in the day. This guy is good. And yeah, Dariush and then Poirier his only losses are to really good fighters. Ramsey Nijam he beat. Man, I mean, this might not be a bad. I just think he doesn't have the wrestling, and Grant Dawson's going to take him down. I would like Diego Ferreira if this was just another stand-up guy that he was fighting, but I don't think it is. And I think Grant Dawson, while I think Dawson will get smoked on the feet if he stands up, I just see Grant Dawson controlling this fight on the ground. Grant Dawson will. I'm trying to see here, like. Yeah, a lot of his win. Yeah, a lot of unanimous decisions in there. Like, that's probably what I see here. I just see a 3-0 unanimous decision. I think Ferreira will beat him on the feet in the first minute or so of each round, but then eventually Dawson will get him up against the fence, take him down. Maybe Ferreira gasses a little bit, and Grant Dawson wins this fight. Yeah, minus 270. But if you like Diego Ferreira, I would just recommend finding props on him and finding methods to victory, whether it's a submission or a knockout, instead of taking him plus 215, because I don't think he can win a decision against Dawson. I just think if this fight's a stand-up fight, Ferreira will knock him out. But I just like Grant Dawson to control it on the ground. All right, we got Bogdan Guskov versus Billy Elikatena. This Gustav guy, I don't think he's fight since he had a pretty decent size upset, I believe, in his last fight. I just remember him because he looks like Anthony Smith. Let's see here. Yeah, he was scheduled to face Johnny Walker in this fight. That would have been an amazing fight. That would have just been. I would have taken the under if it was under 2 minutes in that fight. But yeah, Ryan Spann, when he beat Ryan Spann, I was shocked. I still think Ryan Spann's a good fighter. I just didn't know much about this Buskov guy, and he just seems like a striker. Yeah, I remember when he lost to my boy No Time Ozdemir. But I guess that was his UFC debut. But Zach Poiga stinks. He shouldn't be in the UFC. I don't think he is anymore. And Ryan Spann was kind of an upset, but this Billy Elikatena guy, I don't think he's that good. I don't really remember this guy. or where he came from, if he's a Contender Series guy or something like that. He's an LFA guy. Oh, he's the one. He was in the PFL and he got cut from the PFL. Like, there's no way I'm taking this guy if PFL couldn't get him fights. I don't know why the UFC would pick him up, but yeah, this guy's resume is not impressive. This guy's probably gonna get knocked out. Uprising Trading Center, yeah. What's up, Gino? Let's see what we got going on here. Yeah, I don't like this guy at all. Yeah, I think this guy's gonna get knocked out. I don't know why this fight isn't like the second fight on the prelims. Neither one of these guys are that good or just that experienced. Like, they haven't made a name for themselves in the UFC. But yeah, just take Guskov here. Yeah, he's minus 330. This might be a fight where maybe just take him by knockout. This guy's very heavy-handed. He kind of seems to be just a stand-up fighter. And this Ekatana guy is just nothing special. He's probably one of those guys that's not a UFC talent type of guy. It's just, yeah, I just see him getting knocked out. So I like Guskov here. I'm going to say first round knockout. This next one, first round knockout as well, I believe. I just think this one will be from the ground. Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. Almeida's minus 450 here. It's very rare to see heavyweights that are that high of a favorite, but it's heavyweights. Like, there's a lot of disparity and there's a big skill gap between guys who are ranked like, look, these guys are 6 and 9. I think there is a huge skill gap between them, even though the numbers are 6 and 9. That just goes to show you there ain't 9 good heavyweights in the UFC. That's pretty much what that means. Sergey Spivak, yeah, I know he's a big dude. Yeah, I think he calls himself the polar bear. But yeah, Marcin Tybura is a very underrated fighter. I don't hold much against him for that loss. Or no, he beat Marcin Tybura. I forgot. Yeah, I think he lost to him before. But yeah, I remember having Sergey in that fight. He was a slight underdog, I believe, but he beat Tybura. That was recent. That's a good win. Cyril Gahn beat him. I'm not going to take anything away from Gahn's one of the few good heavyweights in the UFC. Derek Lewis, everyone was stopping him back then. Augusto Sakai, I never thought he should have been in the UFC. That guy just exciting fighter, but not very impressive as a win. Greg Hardy's not an impressive win. Tom Aspinall, not going to hold anything against you. Alexei Olenek, there's a good win. Jared Vandera, not a good win. Carlos Felipe, not a good win. Tybura, Tai Tuivasa, I'm not impressed with. My boy, big ticket, Walt Harris, shout out Birmingham, Alabama. He beat Walt Harris, but like that's not that impressive of a resume. The wins, he don't have anybody that like he was favored was favored to beat him and then beat him. Maybe Tybura in that second fight, but Tybura is also like 40 years old by then. But to get Tybura down, Tybura is a big dude. It's just Jailton Almeida is a fucking tank. This guy, he just goes, he takes people down and he just hammer fist them, or he'll get a submission. But yeah, in the UFC, his only loss is to Curtis Blades. But Curtis Blades is probably the best wrestler in the heavyweight division outside of John Jones. But Alexander Romanov, I think he ended Romanov's career because Romanov, man, that guy's got serious cardio issues. He was projected to do really good. I think he was like 17-0 before those 2 losses. Another guy who beat Derek Lewis, Jairzinho Rosenstrike. That's a good win. Parker Porter, God. Yeah, I mean, not the most impressive, but man, when you watch him fight, like, look at all these, like, rear naked choke, ground and pound, rear naked choke, hammer fist. Oh, that one's my loss, but rear naked choke. He gets guys to the ground is what I'm trying to say. And Spivak is a huge dude. And me and my brother were just talking about this the other day. My brother's he takes jujitsu, so he knows like big guys. We were talking about big guys not being good off their back, and he pretty much said like, yeah, they shouldn't be because they're so used to working their top game on top. Like they don't get a lot of work off their back, and they're just big. And it makes sense. Like Spivak, man, Jalton Almeida's gonna get him down. I think it's gonna be in the first or second round, and he's just gonna hammer away with hammer fist, and it's gonna be a matter of whether or not Spivak turtles up, gives up his back, and goes, and then Almeida beats him with a rear naked, or he just takes the punches and they'll just get a hammer fist TKO from Jalton Almeida. But Almeida's going to get a stoppage in this fight. I don't see it going any other way. So yeah, minus 450. Put him on a parlay. So like the big parlay that I'll end up building here is going to be a lot of the heavy favorites, but like this Nakamura guy. So Nakamura so far, and Nakamura and Almeida, and definitely this Peyton Table. I know he's minus 1400, but Hani Barcelos, outside of a Hail Mary, outside of a Hail Mary submission, because that's what Barcelos does. But I just don't see it. This Peyton Table kid is, I think he's the best prospect in the UFC. I know everybody has a different definition of prospect, but I'm saying like guys with only like 4 fights that are young, and like four fights in the UFC, and who are young in their young 20s. I think Peyton Tabalt's the best out of all of them. Even if you want to throw Bo Nickel in there as as like a protege, I still think Peyton Tabalt's better than him. But Hani Barcelos, like, yeah, he's a good tough fighter from Brazil. Christian Quinones is actually a really good win. I know he was a dog in that fight. Kyler Phillips, he lost to. Kyler Phillips is coming on strong. Umar Nurmagomedov, not going to take anything away from him for that. Trevin Jones ain't that good. Victor Henry, like, shouldn't lose to Victor Henry. Timur Valiov's good. Khalid Taha, he's not that good. Said Nurmagomedov, he beat in a unanimous decision, but that was back in 2019. I think Barcelos is, let me see how old he is. Yeah, he's 37. That's another thing. Like 37 versus a guy in his young 20s. There's no way in hell I'm taking him. And yeah, Peyton Table is just, I mean, this guy's as good as they get. He's as good as they get when it comes to prospects. Not like that kid I was talking about last week who never fought in the UFC before. Like, we've seen this guy fight. Maybe he's not fighting UFC talent. He's got 3 wins in the UFC already. And but he just looks so good. Like, this is a guy where you don't look at the resume or anything like that. You got to watch this guy fight, and once you see him, you'll know what I'm talking about. And he should look spectacular tonight. This is a big event for him, and they're definitely trying to showcase him with a tough Brazilian guy who will probably just get a TKO loss on his record. But this Peyton Table kid will be a future champion. There's no doubt in my mind he wins a title at bantamweight, just because I don't know who the hell's going to come up after him. And this kid is still learning. He's a California. I think he's an old like skateboarding kid. Like, I love everything about this guy. Peyton Table's a definite. Just chuck him on all your parlays. This next fight's probably the toughest one for me to pick on the card. My boy Kevin Holland. I've been on Kevin Holland ever since before he was in the UFC, back in the day when he fought Curtis Millender. Let me see how far ago that was. Where's Curtis Millender? There it is, 2017. That's when I remember him. Yeah, but look at that. He fought Jeff Neal back then. Kevin Holland came up the hard way, and Kevin Holland is really good at the stand-up. It's just over the last couple of years, maybe the last like 4 or 5 years, he's fallen in love with his jiu-jitsu. He kind of invites people to take him down so he can work off his back and try to sub dudes. But I don't think it's a good idea. And I mean, damn, he beat Anthony Hernandez. He beat Joaquin Buckley, Darren the Dennis Stewart, Jacare Sosa. Like, man, he was on a tear there for a while. And then, yeah, he had all these losses like the Derek Brunson, but that's a really good loss. Marvin Vittori, that's a good loss. Kyle Daukaus was a decent prospect back then. Alex Oliveira, everybody loves Alex Oliveira. He's a tough guy to beat. Tim Means is kind of always there, but he should have beat him. Ponzinibbio, Chiesa, those are fights you should win. And Olazechek, like, but he looks good in those fights and he fights smart. It's just all these losses, like the Roman Dolidze fight. I mean, I've been making a lot of money betting against him in the last couple of years, but yeah, Hazmat, Stephen Thompson, Jack Della Maddalena, Michael Venom Page. These are tough fights, but he's losing. He's losing a lot of fights, and some of these guys he's beaten: Santino, Ponzinibbio, Chiesa, old. Alex Oliveira before that, old. Olajaychuk, not really a top level UFC fighter. Henner de Ritter, I mean, we don't know too much about him just because he dominated over in one. I love this guy in one UFC. I would bet him all the time. But in the UFC, his first fight, he didn't look that great. He beat Mearshart, but he didn't look that great against him. And Mearshart was there to get subbed or get knocked out, and that's what de Ritter did to him. I mean, that's kind of something that just goes to show you how good this guy's jiu-jitsu is. He arm triangle choked freaking Gerald Mearshart, and that's Gerald Mearshart's like only path to victory would have been subbing the guy. But I mean, this guy, like, he grappled against Ty Rotolo. I believe he's the better of the two Rotolo brothers, and then he lost to that Anatoly Melican guy, I think he's got a belt in like 3 different weight classes at the same time and won. But yeah, Andre Galvo, he drew him in grappling. Like, this guy's grappling is unreal, and that's what he's going to use in this fight. And I think he just chokes Kevin Holland out. Kevin Holland can't stop takedowns, and de Ritter is just going to take him down. De Ritter's a big guy. He's a big, strong guy. And like, that's another thing. Like, Kevin Holland, I don't like him at middleweight. I don't think he's strong enough for these guys. Like, I mean, de Ritter's a freaking tank. De Ritter's just going to go in there and take him down. I like this fight for Holland if it stays standing and de Ritter can't take him down, but I just don't see that fight happening. Like, these are two completely different paths to victory. Holland has to keep it on the feet, and he has to outpoint him. It's just the old Holland might have done that. He might have fought like that. He doesn't do that anymore. And it's going to cost him. And like Kevin Holland, I read an article about him the other day. Like, he doesn't care about winning. He doesn't care about championships. He cares about breaking some record for most UFC fights or something like that. Like, that might be a cool thing to say to your friends or whatever. But like, from a betting aspect, if you tell me that you don't care about winning, I'm not going to bet you. And if you're going to screw around and try to test your Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills against Henner de Ritter, you're going to get subbed. And that's what I see happening here. But just as equally as good as de Ritter is on the ground against Holland, and Holland's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, as good as he is, or as better as he is on the ground, Holland is way better than de Ritter on the feet. So if this fight does stay standing, or he could knock de Ritter out in the first round. But the safe bet here is to go with Henner de Ritter just to win a decision or submit him. I don't know how else he's going to win, but I'm going to say de Ritter by decision in that one. God, so here we go with these last 4 fights are just awesome. Beneil Dariush versus Money Moicano. This fight, I don't think it's ever happened before, but like, this fight should have been made like 4 or 5 years ago. You got Money Moicano. I don't understand these odds whatsoever. Money Moicano is on a tear, and he's only minus 175. Now, Moicano just knocked out his another American top team guy. But yeah, he not only knocked out Benoit Saint-Denis in a fight that he was a pretty decent underdog in, he beat the living crap out of Saint-Denis the whole entire fight. Saint-Denis, like, I don't know how he made it as far as he did, because at the end of the first round, I mean, he was just beat to crap. And then I think Moicano just kind of laid off of him and kind of let Saint Denis fight for the rest of the round, knowing that his eye was so messed up they were going to stop the fight, which is exactly what happened. But Saint Denis wasn't in that fight ever. Money Moicano beat the living crap out of him. Sometimes I say knockouts cause amnesia because sometimes there's a fighter that's winning the whole fight and then he just gets knocked out in one punch. And all you do is you come on here and you see, boom, he knocked out so-and-so. It's like, well, if that one punch doesn't happen, the other guy wins, so, but it's why it's good to watch every fight. Like this one, I remember, and Saint Denis is a really good fighter, and Moicano beat the crap out of him on the feet. And if he beats Saint Denis on the feet, how the hell can he knock out Beneil Dariush, who doesn't have a chin? He knocked out Jalen Turner. That was another one I believe he was an underdog in. Drew Dober's a really good stand-up guy. He beat Drew Dober. He beats Brad Riddell. There's no way he was a favorite against Riddell, Turner, or Saint Denis. I think he was big dogs in all of those. The Dos Anjos fights, I believe that was a fight where Dos Anjos just took him down repeatedly. But man, like Alex Hernandez, that's a good one. Jai Herbert's an okay. Rafael Fiziev knocked him out. That was when Fiziev was on a tear. But I mean, I just don't see many paths to victory for Beneil Dariush here. Dariush was a real good fighter years ago. It's just his inactivity kills me. Like King's MMA, it's good school. But so he did have 2 fights. He had no fights last year. He had 2 fights in 2023, and they were both losses to Tsarukyan and Oliveira. Those are 2 of the top 5 guys. Gamrot that's a great win for Dariush. I know he was an underdog in that fight. But Tony Ferguson, Diego Ferreira is a good win. Drakkar Klose, Scott Holzman, Frank Camacho, Drew Dober, Thiago Moises. Like this is when he was on kind of a run here, was when he ran through all these guys. Then he was talking about, I believe he was supposed to fight Khabib at some point. And he just never, he was supposed to fight Islam, actually. I couldn't remember because he was kind of in between the Islam and Khabib. But yeah, he was supposed to fight Islam a couple years ago, and that fight never happened. I think he got injured. But the problem is like ground and pound. That's what Moicano does. Now, these guys are probably better wrestler. Well, I don't know if Oliveira's a better wrestler than Moicano, but Moicano is a solid ground guy. It's just Dariush is really good at jiu-jitsu. And if Moicano wasn't so good at jiu-jitsu, maybe I'd take him here just for like a kind of a Hail Mary sub. But I just got to think Moicano knocks this guy out. And I like Moicano a lot in this fight. It's just, like I said, the inactivity for Beneil Dariush, I don't like it at all. Not against the guy who's on a solid run. The most shocking fact of this is I didn't realize it until my brother sent me a video about people calling Beneil Dariush old, and he's only 35. And Moicano he said he's older than him. So let me see how old Moicano is. But Moicano, I don't care how old he is. Like he's fought very recently and he's fought very well. They're both 35. But yeah, American Top Team, like just go with Moicano here. He is kind of an overachiever, and eventually you're going to get smoked betting on this guy because the value is eventually going to be gone from this guy. The value was taking him against Brad Riddell, taking him against Drew Dober, Turner, and in Saint Denis. There's the value. If you missed out on that, I usually would say don't jump on him now because he's going to be overvalued. But this is just a good matchup for him because Dariush, I just think his chin is shot. Those 2 knockouts here. And so he hasn't, last fight he won was in October of 2022. Like he, just the activity and his chin and him being 35 years old. I don't like it. I mean, he is very, very good at jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu is probably better than Moicano's, but Moicano's not, you're not going to sub Moicano. I don't see that happening. But that's probably Dariush's only chance to victory. And I don't see it happening. I like Moicano a lot here at only minus 190. This is kind of like last week with Thiago Moises versus uh shit, I forget his name, but that coach there, Trey Ogden, I believe his name is. And Moises won that fight. It was somewhat competitive. I see the kind of same thing here. But yeah, let's just take Moicano minus 175. I like that number a lot. Next fight, I mean, just flip a coin in this one. Like, I like Jamal Hill, and it's just, I mean, this was going to be a stand up fight. It's just whose stand up do you like more? And I mean, Jamal Hill, I believe, has more of an uh, he's got more knockout power than Yuri. Yuri should be the more technical guy with all that karate samurai stuff, but Yuri's just like, I don't think his fight IQ is that high, and I think he gets hit way too much, and that's going to be Hill's path to victory here. Is I think Hill will be the smarter fighter in here and pick his shots, and Yuri is there to be cracked. And I think Hill gets a knockout here. I mean, some of these fights, like, I mean, they both lost to Pereira recently. Hill's they were both equally as bad. I mean, Hill didn't look that good in that fight, but yeah, he lost in the first round, but he did beat Glover, uh Thiago Santos, Johnny Walker, Jimmy Crute. That was a big knockout for him because Crute was a stand-up guy as well, and he knocked him out in 48 seconds. I remember that. But yeah, and that's another thing. Like his loss to Paul Craig, I don't care, if Paul Craig pulled off a Hail Mary submission, from the guard, which means Hill was on top of him. But like that's not a threat from Yuri, so I don't care about that fight. This is the knockout. So like both these guys getting knocked out by Alex Pereira, it's going to be the same thing in this fight. Whoever gets knocked out first, and it's going to be a quick knockout. Like I don't see this fight going past the first round. I just think whoever lands first is going to get a knockout, and I'm going to say it's going to be. I think Jamal Hill lands first. It knocks Yuri out. I just don't like Yuri. Does a lot of crazy stuff in there, and I think he's very skilled, but I just don't like his IQ as a fighter, and I think he gets knocked out against Jamal Hill here. He's got pretty much the same record as Jamal Hill, the same type of resume. A lot of these fighters are just, yeah. When he was in Risen, he actually fought a lot of good fighters. Bruno Capoloza, he's guys like, I think he was the heavyweight champion for PFL. Carl Albrechtsen was good. Like he's got King Mo, Fabio Maldonado, Jesus, CB Dalloway. Like Yuri fought a lot of good fighters over his career, but eventually, like it takes a toll on you, man. Like, and remember this Glover Teixeira fight. Like Glover was winning that fight, and then Teixeira or Yuri got that crazy choke and choked out Glover, which surprised everybody. I think this is another fight where he struggled, and I think Jamal Hill is better than all these guys. Reckon that would be a tough one, but I think Jamal Hill's better than all these guys, and I think he knocks him out. Like, yeah, and those two recent knockouts, Yuri's chin might not be there. I know he had that long injury layoff. That's not too good. So, yeah, let's just take Jamal Hill by knockout here. This is another one where don't bet the side, just bet who you like and bet the path to victory. Like if you like either one of these guys, just pick them by knockout. I don't see this fight going 3 rounds. Like whoever's game plan turns out to work, like it's going to work really good, or they're going to look really good doing it. And I just think that's what's going to happen. Jamal Hill by KO. Yeah, this line's kind of going all over the place. Like I know Hill was an underdog the other day, but yeah, minus 120. It's good odds no matter who you like. If you like Yuri in this one, just take him. But I would just take either one of these fighters by knockout. No submission, no nothing. Just whoever you like by knockout. Let's see. Next fight, we got the co-main event: Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Whew. I mean, I love Dvalishvili. I've been betting him his whole UFC career besides or no, I bet him against Ricky Simone, but that loss is just that was one of the dumbest stoppages I've ever seen. I don't know how you stop a fight and say the guy's out when he's kicking his feet. You can go back and watch the fight. Like, I remember watching it live and having Merab, and Merab he won the first 2 rounds against Simone, and then Simone had him, and I believe it was like a north south or something like that. And it was right at the end of the fight, and Dvalishvili is kicking his feet while the other dude's trying to choke him out. And they stopped the fight saying Merab was out. Now, when they pulled Simone off him, I think his eyes were kind of all over the place. But he was kicking his feet. Like, I just don't like that loss. Anyways, I bet Merab a lot. I love this dude. And if you would have told me that he was like a plus 300 or plus 280 against anybody in the UFC, I'd say you're nuts. The problem is he's going up against one of those guys you just don't bet against. Like, look at this resume for Merab. Sean O'Malley, he dominated him over 5 rounds. Henry Cejudo, he out-wrestled Henry Cejudo. He beats Peter Yan. He's a mixed bag of tricks. He's got everything Yan does. He can strike. He's got wrestling. He's got cardio. Beat him in a unanimous decision. Beats Jose Aldo. I don't care when you fought Jose Aldo. He's still a really good fighter. Marlon Moraes, Marlon Moraes was good back then. Cody Stamen, John Dodson, this guy's beat everybody, and he is the belt holder. It's just these guys that train with Khabib and his close knit there, I'm not betting against them. I'm not betting for these guys to lose. Now, if you want a path to victory here for Merab, maybe Umar doesn't have the best gas tank. I mean, I think I remember him slowing down a little bit in this fight against Sandhagen. Even though he dominated the fight, he didn't look that dominant. I don't think he looked as dominant as Merab did against O'Malley. But I'm just not picking these guys to lose. Look, his resume's not even that impressive. But I mean, these guys, just because of who they train with, he's undefeated. He doesn't know how to lose. Yeah, I'm just going to pick this guy until he loses. And some people might say that this line's a little high, but in a couple years from now, you might be looking at Umar and every one of his fights is minus 500, minus 550, minus 700. And you're going to look back and be like, man, I had the option to take this guy at minus 330 and I didn't. Just take him. I just don't see him losing this fight. But I do see this fight going 5 rounds. This is a fight where if you don't like either side, maybe I think the safer bet is to take the over on this fight. It's probably going to be 4.5 rounds and it'll probably be juiced, but just take the over in this fight. But yeah, I got Umar by decision. I don't know. Maybe he can knock Merab out on the feet. I don't know how great Merab's hands are. I know Merab's going to attempt about 35 takedowns in this fight. And maybe he gets 1 or 2 of them, but I don't think he's going to be able to hold Umar down. If this was a 3-round fight, I'd give Merab more of a chance because I think he could get knocked. He could get takedowns in this. It's just he's not going to be able to hold Umar down, and they're going to be on the feet for the majority of the fight. And if Merab's not dragging him up pushing up against the fence, getting takedowns, he's not going to win. And Umar is a lot better than him on the feet. So I just got Umar by decision here. Pretty comfortable with that. Maybe that's another one you throw onto the parlay. And then this next one, it's the same thing. I'm just not betting against that gym with Islam, Khabib, Umar, Usman, all those guys. None of those guys I just mentioned have lost. I mean, yeah, Makhachev's got this one fluke loss on there, but he pretty much hasn't lost. You just have to go with Islam here. Once again, until he shows a sign of weakness, I don't see him losing. Poirier, that was a great fight by Poirier. Poirier gave him a really tough fight. Volk gave him a tough fight in this first one. But he still didn't lose those fights. And he's so good. It's just like whenever he loses a round or something like that, like people just kind of shit on him a little bit. And but like he rarely loses rounds. He's just like Khabib. And the whole thing when he was coming up was this guy is just like Khabib, but with better striking, people used to say. And he is better than Khabib on the feet, in my opinion. But yeah, just some really good resume and just hasn't lost in a very, very long time. Like Adriano Martin's, like I remember that fight. Like Martin landed a Hail Mary punch. What are you gonna do? But after that, like that's a really good resume. And he beat Arman once. So I don't know how much better. I'm sure Tsarukyan got better as well, but you imagine how good Islam's got in the last 6 years. Um, I just don't see him losing. I don't see him losing to anybody anytime soon. Like maybe if Taporia comes up, he'd give him a hell of a fight. I, I just don't know. Like I can't see anybody else um, coming up, but we'll see. Tsarukyan is really good. It's just I don't see him beating Islam. If it was anybody else, like I took him when he was against Oliveira, he was like minus 300 or something in that fight, and he beat Oliveira. I thought he beat him convincingly. I don't think it was a split. He beats Dariush, beats Joaquim Silva. Joaquim Silva, Desmir Ismagulov is good. Like yeah, that loss I don't like right there, the Gamrot loss. I think Gamrot might have out scrambled him on the ground. And I remember that because I when that fight happened, those guys were two highly touted prospects, and that was to kind of see who was going to go to the next level. And oddly enough, Gamrot beats him there, and then Gamrot loses a couple of fights. I think he lost to Dariush actually, and that kind of ruined his career. And now Arman's got a title shot and deservedly so. And he could beat a lot of other guys in this weight class. It's just I don't see him beating Islam. I mean, he's only 28 years old. So let me see how old Islam is. Islam's 33. Arman, I mean, once Islam's done, I can see Arman being one of those guys. He'll hang around and maybe he's the guy who takes over after Islam, but until that happens, like just don't bet against these guys. Like that whole camp of Khabibs, follow it over to Bellator and bet what the hell is his name's fight in Bellator against Paul Hughes, Usman Nurmagomedov, who I believe I heard their coach Javier said that Usman's actually the best out of Islam, Usman, and Umar. He said, and Khabib, he said that Usman is the best out of all of them because he's the best striker out of all of them, and they're all just phenomenal on the ground. But yeah, Islam, I mean, Islam is just better everywhere than Tsarukyan. I'm trying to think of a path to victory for Tsarukyan. It would be a Hail Mary knockout. Maybe Tsarukyan's a little bit better than him on the feet, but I don't know. And then he's definitely not better on the ground. You're definitely not taking Islam down. I think he's smaller than Islam as far as height. I just don't see it, man. I just don't see it happening. Like, I mean, if you're a value better, like plus 305 is a really good number to have on this good of a fighter. Same thing here. That's a really good number to have on a really good fighter. It's just they're not going to win. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see these guys losing. Nurmagomedov and Makhachev, they're not going to lose for another 5 years or so. That's just the way I feel. So I'm definitely not betting against them here. But yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts. It's gonna be a fun card. There's some fun fights on there, like that Yuri Jamal Hill fight. I mean, that's just gonna be a fight. Like it's probably gonna end in the first round. And there's some prospects early on in the prelims that are pretty good. But let me know who you guys think's gonna win. And I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here. I got some boxing fights to study for tomorrow night. But I'll see you guys later.